I titled my talk today, The Frequency of Abundance, because I'd like to have abundance more frequently. Wouldn't you? But of course, that's not exactly the frequency I was talking about. I'm talking about the frequency of us, what we exude. When I took a class from Mary Morrissey about 3 years ago, and she said something that really stuck in my mind. It was memorize the frequency of your desired future. And while that had an impact on me, it also just made me ponder, like, how will I know? How do I know what the frequency of my desired future is? How do I even know what my own frequency is? Frequency is the sum of vibrations produced by predominant thoughts and beliefs. It's the vibrations that are produced by predominant thoughts and beliefs. Our frequency creates our identity. I see two parts to frequency, to our identity. There's the I am, the truth of our being, and the I am not, which is all of the limiting beliefs that say I can't do this, I'm not that, I'm not worthy, all of those things. And those parts, the limiting beliefs, are kind of like a crust on the outside of us that are there thinking they're for protection. They think they're protecting us, but they create this crust that can't not expand. It holds us back, and that's why they're called limiting beliefs. So one of the things that we need to look at is how to be able to expand our I am and let go of some of those limiting beliefs. There's a story in the Bible, you've probably heard it many times maybe. I can see that the book's upside down. Let's turn it the other way. For whatsoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away, even that he hath. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because they, seeing, see not, and hearing, they hear not, neither do they understand. So that was puzzling when I was a child, too. That's not fair. But when you think about frequency, that's kind of how it works. When we are in a frequency of havingness, then all things come to us. And when we're in a frequency of lack, that's what we get, lack. So that's another reason to get rid of these limiting beliefs, but it's hard to do. Those limiting beliefs are defensive. That's what they think they're there for. And they will not be rooted out easily. And I've tried for years. But what I think we need to do is outgrow them. So if they're a hard crust around us, then the more we expand our I am, they crack away, fall off. I watched a video the other day, and it was called The Law of Being. I don't know if anyone has seen that before. It was powerful. If you can find it, I recommend it. And it said in it, your identity is the mold in which life pours its possibilities. Isn't that a cool thought? So it's very, very important to master our identity. Well, to outgrow them, the limiting beliefs, that is, there are several things that we can do. One is positive affirmations. And what affirmations can do depends on, how you word them. They have to be believable. Not necessarily that it's your belief, because maybe that's what you're trying to change, but you have to be at least able to accept the possibility. Otherwise, every time you say an affirmation, then you hear in the back of your mind, no, I'm not. At least that's what happens to me. I just thought I would mention right now that that book, which we'll be discussing in the next few weeks, is essentially daily affirmations, and a lot about peace and who we are, and even miracles and abundance. It seems like this course is coming off of a Course in Miracles, but I liked it. I had a limiting belief, and it was, I'm too busy, I don't have enough time. Anybody have that one? Yeah. Well, I realized that limiting belief was preventing me from having the things that I wanted, having the friendships that I wanted, having participation in things that I wanted, because I would even say, when people walked up to me, they'd say, well, how are you doing? And I go, oh, well, I'm really busy. I've got all these things. And so guess what happened? All my friends, people here at the church, my sisters, my brother, well, my brother doesn't ask for things anyway, but they were afraid to ask me to do things or to join them, because they'd figure, oh, well, Denita's too busy. So that took affirming that I will say yes to all the things that I would like to be invited to, or that were in alignment with who I am. And I will refrain from telling people that I'm too busy. And a few other affirmations. I use affirmations quite a bit on that one. And guess what? I started getting invitations. I loved it. So positive affirmations are really useful. And another thing that clear the throat, that I have found to be so powerful is to love yourself. That's like growing that vessel of I am until the limiting beliefs can crack away. Loving yourself is so magnetic. I once was taking an NLP class. Sorry. At my age, you get croaky. In an NLP class, there was one particular presenter that was just so charismatic. And I couldn't stop just listening and watching him and feeling just really powerfully charged up by what he had to say. Thank you. And I just wondered, it was like, what makes him so charismatic? And I realized, I think he loves himself. And it's true. And so loving yourself in whatever way you can do that is very, very powerful. And that can go along with affirmations too. I used to affirm that I loved myself. In fact, I do that almost every time I look in the mirror. But also, I used to say this affirmation, I love you, God. And then I would hear God saying, I love you, Denita. And so it would be a more passive way of hearing that I am loved. And I think that helped too. As a matter of fact, it was what was going on about the time that I got one of my most miraculous instances of abundance. And then, as you know, gratitude. This gratitude is one of those ways you can just like a knob tune up your frequency. Every act of gratitude or words of gratitude can up your frequency. And you don't have to like, what am I trying to say? It doesn't have to be something you powerfully like. If you notice something, anything, if you notice a person, if you notice, the other day I was sitting and I always saw a picture when I was sitting in like my dining room area. There was one picture that was an old picture of myself and my husband and our dog and our cat at that time. And so I was sitting there trying to think of what I was grateful for, and I kept seeing that picture, and it was like, oh, I am grateful for my family, of course I am. But it had a lot of meaning because it was drawing my attention. And things will draw your attention, and it's great to notice them and go, yeah, okay, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I noticed it. And lastly, there's tithing. Anybody stiffen up when they hear that word tithe? Okay. Tithing is an act of gratitude for the abundance that has already come. You have to decide on trust, though, even if it doesn't make sense first. I'm going to read you a little bit out of Edwin Gaines, her book on 4 spiritual laws of prosperity. And this is about when she first started tithing. I'd like to tell you that when I first started making tithes, I did so with faith, freely and cheerfully, but the truth was I was scared silly. I tithed with absolute terror. Some days, I gave away money knowing that I'd have none left for me and my daughter to buy groceries and eat the next day. And yet, I gave it away regardless. But I had said I was going to give God a chance to make good on this promise, and I had made a commitment that I intend to keep. In those first fearful months, I learned a great deal in the dead of night. I sometimes experienced panic attacks and night terrors. It was very scary. I did a lot of affirmations, such as creditors can't eat me. I learned how important it was to turn back to prayer, to read some faith-building literature, to listen to an inspirational tape, to write out statements of faith, to remind myself what I had chosen to believe. And yet, no matter how scared I got, I never stopped tithing. My rationale was that if this promise of tithing was not going to be true for me, I'd rather know it now than later. For the first few weeks, nothing much happened. My dreams of heaven's windows being thrown open were not realized. But although my greatest dreams weren't realized, neither were my worst fears. The electric company did not turn off my service. nor did anyone come to repossess my car. And then once I had been tithing for a while, some very interesting things started to happen. Out of the blue, I'd get a refund check from someone, or I'd get a little $5 gift from Aunt Mary, or my dad would give me $20. Money would start coming in little dribs and drabs. As a school teacher on a tiny income, that got my attention. Sometimes we have to get through fear, and I always feel like the way to do that is to do it. To get through fear is to get through fear. Every time I've done anything that I had fear for and then did it, I got this big release of energy and joy. It happened every time. It's why I love speaking now. It used to be fearful. I did it, and I got this big flush of joy, and now I'm addicted to it. And it requires trust. And, when I hear trust, when it doesn't make sense to you, or trust, when you can't really make sense of it, I always think about when I was 3 or 4 years old, and my father was playing ball with me, and he was throwing the ball, and I would do this, and the ball would go right past. And finally, he was getting frustrated, and he came over and he said, "Denny, keep your eye on the ball." And I looked at him, and I picked up the ball. Well, sometimes if you need to trust, that's what it's like. It's like, I don't see how this is going to help, but I'm going to do it anyway. Well, tithe means 10%. You know that, right? So it doesn't matter how much your income has been, 10% is 10%. And you know what that does? It alleviates you from having to think about how much to give or whether to give. I don't know if the basket has ever been passed to you and you've been thinking, how much should I put in there? I wonder if I can afford this much. And when you're thinking that, you're wondering if what you can afford to put in the basket, you are sending out the frequency of lack, because that's what you're thinking about. So I would just like to emphasize what you do when you give, what you think, what you're thinking when you give, and your beliefs are what is the magnetic energy that brings more back to you. So we always say, you give and then it comes back to you 1,000-fold or whatever. It's that frequency that's magnetic to receiving. And that is why it's great to just celebrate and be grateful for what you've gotten that you're tithing on. So, for instance, and it doesn't matter what the amount is. I mean, you could find $10 and tithe 10 cents, right? The other day, it was last week, I got an email from the company that prints my book. And I had never gotten any kind of a money from the company, and I had never had a royalty or anything for this book. And so they sent me this email saying they're sending me $18.72 for book sales. And my first reaction was, well, whoop-de-doo. But then I thought, no, I appreciate that. I am grateful and excited. The fact that I got any royalty was fantastic. And so that's what I did at church last Sunday. I got out $2. I rounded it up, put that in that basket with absolute gratitude and celebration. And so that's what I wanted to say about tithing. So let's just move now into meditation. And just relax. Let go. Let go of all resistance. And tap into the light of your being. You can imagine it as a big golden light. As this light pours in and moves through you and moves back out in flow. And let the truth of your being expand. And the more it expands, the more you receive the light. And the more you let go of your limitations, the more you can expand your light. Celebrate your you-ness. Is that a word? I am. Internally, you can say that to yourself. I am. I am love. I am loved. I am lovable. I am. And we say, thank you, God. Amen. And you can open your eyes whenever you're ready.